That was an absolute killer. I unlocked a level within inside myself there that I don't think I've ever seen before.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today I'm going to be testing just how much I've managed to improve my FTP over the last 100 days of training. At the end of last year, I knew I needed to change something and take my training a bit more seriously if I wanted to hit a higher peak in the 2025 season. So to achieve this, I committed to following a properly structured training plan for pretty much the first time ever. As part of this, I had to up my weekly training volume from the 6 to 8 hours or so I was getting throughout last year to a far more challenging 12 to 15 hours, which I have actually successfully been following since the start of 2025. When I started this journey, my fitness was actually in a pretty decent place. I just managed to average 400 watts for 4 minutes at the National Hill Climb, and in late November, I performed my most recent FTP test, where I managed to hold 323 watts for 20 minutes, giving me an FTP of around 307. Since then, things haven't all gone quite to plan. In late November, I injured my wrist. The doctors even thought it was broken at the time, which really affected my training throughout November and December. By the time the end of December hit, I knew it was time to start following a plan. I couldn't really afford to pay a proper coach, so I looked into online options. I decided to follow a joint cycling plan and fully commit to it, following almost everything it suggested, while still listening to my body and taking a step back if I did ever feel ill or like I was doing too much. Since then, I have been feeling genuinely stronger than I have ever before. A few weeks ago, I attempted to set a PB up Sacalobra, where I held 330 watts for around 31 minutes. And then last weekend, I raced a 25-mile time trial on a really hilly course, averaging 300 watts with 308 watts normalized for the hour and 8 minutes it took me. And that got me thinking, just how much has my FTP actually improved? On my joint cycling account, they're estimating it's 324 watts, but I have a sneaking suspicion it could be slightly higher than that. Digging a little deeper into the specifics of my training since the start of this year, most of the work I've been doing has been surrounding building a solid endurance base with a mixture of threshold, sweet spot, endurance work, and a sprinkle of short interval sessions like 40-20s or 30-30s. However, wherever I have been doing these interval sessions, it's generally been incorporated into a longer endurance ride to help get that weekly volume up. The goal hasn't just been solely to increase my FTP, but to improve my durability and how well I can perform after a load of kilojoules are in my legs. And I really have been noticing the difference with this one. I think the main key there was upping my volume and getting the longer rides in. This is especially important with some of the longer gravel races I'm planning to do this spring. Most weeks I've been training between 12 and 15 hours, splitting my time between indoor and outdoor rides, depending on the weather and daylight time. And of course, a healthy dose of complaining about daylight saving time. By far the greatest challenge has been the consistency though, making sure week in, week out I'm hitting my goals and not just taking the easy excuses. However, life doesn't always go to plan, and some evenings I'm simply too exhausted to hit my training goal for the day. Bouncing back quickly is so important, making sure, despite a minor setback, I'm ready to go the next day, instead of letting it throw off my whole week. Looking back, I'm actually really proud of the consistency I've achieved here. This is by far the most consistent I've ever been. Since the start of the year, I've already clocked 145 hours in the saddle, covering almost 4,000 kilometers. And almost all of it has been in structured workouts, with only a short week in Mallorca where I was just doing a few more fun rides. The last few months has really felt like a monumental step forward in terms of my fitness and preparation for racing this year, but I want to actually put a number on it. So hopefully today's FTP test will quantify all the gains I've got and give me a real confidence boost going into racing this year. Before I get my kit on and do today's test, I want to talk about what's made these gains possible. I've been following Joint Cycling's FTP booster plan since the start of the year, and it has genuinely been a game changer for my performance. Juggling a high training volume along a full-time job really isn't easy, but Joint Cycling has helped me make the most of the time I do have available. For example, next week I know both Monday and Thursday are going to be really low availability days. I've put this lower availability into the Join app, and it's cleverly scheduled my training for next week to avoid training on those days and use them as rest days, shifting key workouts to days where I do have more time available. If you'd like to give Joint Cycling a go, check out my link in the description below and sign up for a risk-free 30-day trial where you don't even have to put in any card details. The numbers don't lie. Now it's time to put my training to the test on the turbo. Right, it's time to give it a go. Not gonna lie, I'm not looking forward to this one. As always, I'm gonna do this at the out because it helps me get in the zone mentally and really put out my best effort. So first things first, let's get myself warmed up. I'm using the Join Cycling FTP test protocol, which just has a bit of a warm up, couple of sprints, and then the full on 20-minute test. Hopefully it'll be alright, but it is gonna hurt. I'm also gonna record on my Garmin with my Favero pedals, just so I can check the numbers my turbo are giving me are in line with what my pedals suggest. In terms of pacing, Join is currently estimating my FTP to be 324 watts. To get that as a result, I'll have to hold 340 for the 20 minutes. So I'm going to trust that, set off at that pace, hold it for around 10 minutes, and then adjust from there on out. The worst thing in a 20-minute test is if you go out too hard and just spend the whole time dying. I did a 45-minute crit yesterday, so I have got excuses ready and loaded in the bag. Legs are feeling alright though. A little bit fatigued in the muscles, but I think I should be alright today. It is interesting. Join's protocol for warming up, it's quite different to Zwift and it's a bit easier actually. I think Zwift's warm up is a bit too hard. It was getting me doing 3 minutes at 360 and 2 minutes at 390. That's a full-on VO2 max effort. I just think that's a bit too deep to be recovered in time for a full-on 20-minute effort. Probably going to be quite quiet for the next 20 minutes, but crucially, I'm not going to get too carried away at the start. Let's see if I eat my words for that one though. And off we go. The first few minutes always feels okay, and it's really easy to go out too hard. But the challenge is settling into a nice, sustainable pace that I can hold for the full 20 minutes. As I said before, my goal is to sit at around 340 watts, and after some little faffs with my gearing right at the very start, that was looking quite achievable. Okay, an eighth of the way in, feeling alright. The first 5 minutes was relatively uneventful, just settling into that 340 watt pace, noticing my average is actually slightly above that target. Right, that's a quarter of the way done. Oh, it's getting tough now. From minute 5 to 15 is always a grind. Your legs still feel okay towards the start of it, but you've exhausted that initial adrenaline kick you get at the start of the test. You're still far too far from the finish to start having that final drive for the line, so you've just got to sit in and play the mental game, holding steady on that power target and not going too hard too early. Right, that's 10 minutes. At the 10-minute mark, I'd actually exceeded my target of holding 340 for the first 10 minutes. And despite being in quite a lot of pain at this point, still felt that I could push even harder later into the test. Final 5 minutes. At this point, it's just pure survival. This is where all my training pays off. Can I hold on to my average power? And is there a slim chance of me dragging it up even higher?
I'm done. That was an absolute killer. I unlocked a level within inside myself there that I don't think I've ever seen before. Jesus. Oh. And I possibly didn't even go hard enough because I had that 400 watt surge at the end. I don't want to do another one of them for a while though. Shout out to Beamer and the Hill Climb Project for the top. It must have been my lucky charm. Now to cool down, and I'll get back to you with the results in a minute. Okay, that's the test done and the results are in. I averaged 346 watts for the full 20 minutes of the test, which puts my new FDP at 329 watts. A huge jump from 307 watts back in November. At my current weight of 66 kilos, that puts me at 4.98 watts per kilo. But let's be real here, I'm going to be rounding that up to 5 watts per kilo just for the bragging rights. This is the strongest I've ever been at threshold power. But the real question is, how is that going to translate to racing results on the road? So, what's next? With these numbers, I feel confident about my sub 40 Alpe Zwift PB attempt, as you need to hold around 5 watts per kilo for the 40-minute effort. A target I think is really achievable now. But it's not just about FTP. In May, my local hill climb series starts back up, so I'm going to need to sharpen up my VO2 max power so I'm completely race ready. I really want to get a win on the board this year. At the same time, I'm going to have to keep maintaining such a high training volume. In order to maintain this durability and fatigue resistance, I'm going to need in some of the big gravel races coming up. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into my training, get yourself subscribed down below, turn on notifications, and get active in the comments. Do you think with these numbers I'm going to be able to take on a sub 40-minute Alpe Zwift PB? I'll see you all in the next one.